Hey everybody, welcome back. My name is Matt. Thanks for stopping by the channel. Now, the pattern I'm going to be walking through tonight is another streamer from Mike Valla's classic streamer fly box. This one is called the Owego. Now, there's not a lot known about this pattern other than it's named after Owego Creek in the countryside outside of Ithaca, New York. I've never seen the creek, but I have seen this picture. Now, I did try to do a little bit of research online for this one, and other than the paragraph Mike Valla had written about it, there wasn't much. He referenced Larry Keller's 1950 book called Taking Larger Trout, and I'd never seen this book until tonight. But apparently it's available at some online used book dealers if you're so inclined. But tonight's fly is a featherwing streamer, so it's not exactly a beginner's fly pattern, but don't shy away from tying a featherwing streamer if you are new to tying. They're hard to tie and they're hard to get right. This one took me a couple of times to get it right tonight. And if your first few don't look good, keep going, keep practicing. Eventually you get some that do look good. That's how we learn, just practice, repetition. So anyway, it's a pretty cool looking pattern. I think you're going to enjoy it. Let's get started. So there it is in the vise. I'm going to be tying this on a size 8 streamer hook. It's a 5 extra long. I'm going to put down a base of black. I'm using 8/0 thread. Now let's tie in a tail. Take a feather from a duck, dyed red, duck or goose. Just one small little slip right there. If you can get a decent bend, it might look a little bit better. You can have it down or you can flip it over. Whatever is your preference. And it's not real long. It's a little bit substantial, but probably a hook gap, I'd say. Let's take one wrap, take a look at it before we secure it. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. I'm going to go ahead and snip this off because that's going to create a fair size step down, which I don't really want. The back of this fly back here will be, if we're not careful, it will be a little bit lumpy. So next component, let's tie in the tinsel. Now this is a size 14, it's a medium silver and gold mylar. I'm going to tie it in with the silver side toward the hook, so when I flip it and wrap it, you will see the silver. So let's catch this in back all the way to the tail. Okay, I think that's going to be fine right there. Now let's take our yellow wool yarn. Now this is pretty thick, so what we can do when we're tying it in, well, first off, you want to tie in as small amount of material as possible back here to really try and avoid a thicker part of the body way back here. It's going to be a little bit unavoidable, but we'll see what we can do. You can kind of spin it back here and maybe get it tighter, or you can build a little bit more of a thread base right here and just try to ramp it down, but it's still going to get thinner up here toward the middle. So you see where I've tied that yarn in, it's going to be a bit thicker right there. Might not be a lot we can do about that, but we'll try. So this first wrap, I'm going to wrap over and under, and check your yarn. If you spin it one way, it's going to tighten it up. If you spin it the other way, it is going to loosen it, because it is a spun woven type wool. So I'm figuring out, I think spinning it clockwise right here tightens it up. So I'm going to put some fairly tight wraps right here on those first couple of them. I'm spinning it and I'm making it about as tight as I feel comfortable pulling on the hook. And now after I've gotten 3 wraps, I don't have to pull as tight and I can let it spin back out a little bit. That might cause this body right here to look a little more even. I wish I had a clip on here to get that mylar out of the way. So now I'm not pulling these as tight right here. Okay, when you got that wool wrapped all the way up to the front, a couple of tight wraps here to catch it off. And get that mylar out of your way. It'll be out of our way in a second. We'll wrap it up. So go ahead and snip this wool yarn off. Maybe a couple more wraps to really bind that in. Now take a look at our body. It's a little bit thicker in the back, but it's not terrible. So I'm going to counter wrap this rib. Take your time here and go as evenly spaced as you can all the way up. Probably 6, 7 wraps. Okay, a couple of securing wraps at the front of that. What you might want to do is fold this back over and a couple more wraps snug up against them just to really lock that tinsel in before you reach in there and snip that off. Now the next component is our beard. So take your thread back just a little bit where we want that beard to be hanging off. I want it about right there where I got that thread, maybe just another turn back, one more turn behind. So flip over your hook, and the beard is just some red saddle hackle, strong neck hackle, dyed red. And there's nothing that says you can't trim off a couple of clumps of that, put it in your hair stacker. I know it's a feather, it's not hair, but it will stack okay, and you'll get some evenly spaced tips right here. That's a pretty fair sized chunk. And it's not a long throat, so if it was a shorter hook it might stick out to the point, but it's still going to be significantly far away from the point of the hook. So I mean, it is a streamer. So let's put a couple of wraps right here and then check our position. Okay, that's coming off the bottom about like I want. Let's try a couple more securing wraps right here before we snip this off. Okay, I think that's going to look all right there. Let's reach in here and snip off this excess as close as you can get it. And then just bury those stub ends right there. Now this next part is probably the hardest part of the fly. Just some neck Grizzly hackle, from a neck. These pieces all come from one part of the neck, and they all have a similar curve. So it's not like you can pick a right and a left one. So you're gonna have to just do the best you can to pick out two feathers, and you'll want to put them facing each other, the dull sides together, and just try to line them up the best you can. You want it about the length of the fly to the back of the tail. So these right here, they're laying fairly flat together. It's not always the easiest part of the fly to find these feathers. And a hair wing streamer is not the easiest kind of streamer to tie anyway, but just take your time here, find your tie-in point, and then we'll do a loose pinch wrap right here, and maybe some medium wraps right there, and check our position and make sure if you're lined up along the top of the hook, check your position right there. I think we are okay. Let's then go ahead and do a couple more medium wraps and just work on cleaning up this head and securing these wings, these feathers along the top. Now I think I've got enough wraps right there. I can go ahead and snip these butt ends off. Now the last component, if you've got them, jungle cock eyes. These really do make a streamer pop. If you don't have them, just skip them, or you could use synthetic ones, or just don't use any at all. So I'm going to try to catch this in at about a 45-degree angle, about like that. I will do 2 loose wraps right there. Okay, that's about where I want. And then I will lay this one, try to match it about the same. and then do 2 more loose wraps, and double check your position one more time before you secure them in for good. Okay, so the one on my side here has got 2 wraps holding it, and the one on that side is now, I guess it's got 4 wraps. So I think that is going to be fine right there. Let's go ahead and before we start wrapping up this head, I think we can go ahead and snip these off, the butt ends of the jungle cock and any rogue fibers from that Grizzly wing. So a few more wraps right here, and I think we can take it back up to the eye and build a ramp. I think I've split my thread a little bit right there. You see some of the coming off the top, that's thread fibers. So let's just go ahead and clean up this head. So 4-turn whip finish will be fine because I'm going to put a big blob of head cement on this thing. Might be ready, time to do a little bit of cleanup if you got some fibers sticking out. Might have a little bit of this wool sticking out down here, and some of these fibers right here on that. But I'm just going to leave them. After fishing it a couple of casts, they're going to be all over the place anyway. But it does have some good action through the water. So, well, that's all, folks. The Owego streamer from Mike Valla's Classic Streamer Fly Box. I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you next time.